Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, let's talk about all the books I read in July. The first book that I finished in July was From Below by Darcey Coates. In this book, we're following a group of people that have been hired by a documentary company to explore this shipwreck that happened a very long time ago and to document it because no one has ever, it's been lost for a long time and no one's ever explored it. The ship is the SS Arcadia, and I think this happened around the same time as Titanic. I think they sunk around the same time. But these ships are in very different waters because the SS Arcadia is in a shallow place where they can physically dive down and stay there for hours. And it's also in different water that is really, really cold, and there's no sea life because they explain it in the book, but because of the water there's no sea life and stuff has been preserved within the ship. So in the book, we have a marine biologist, a professional diver, our documentarian, and her cameraman, and a few other people. When they get to the part of the ocean that they believe the SS Arcadia is in, because they're still not sure, they still need to see it for themselves. Their plan was to send rovers down to see the ship first, and for the rovers to do most of the work. But when they get there, all of the rovers stop working, and a lot of the electronic stuff that they brought has mysteriously broken. So there's a lot of suspicion on the ship, and now they have to physically dive down and do all of the work themselves. So some people that weren't even supposed to dive in the first place now are going to go down to the ship. Darcey Coates is very good at creating atmosphere in a book. You get that very claustrophobic feeling because they are diving, which to me seems kind of like a scary thing to do, hundreds of feet down, and you only have so much oxygen. They're in this ship where they could get trapped or lost. And she's really good at making us feel those things. But this is not a scary Darcey Coates. And that's what I wanted. I do think it's a good book, and it's very interesting, and I like the summer atmosphere and all of the claustrophobic feelings. But I do wish that this had been scarier. I'm kind of noticing that Darcey Coates has her very atmospheric books and then her more creepy books. And I think this falls under more of the atmospheric books. There are some creepy scenes, but I wanted them to go further. The other thing within this book that is a personal preference, I think some people might actually enjoy this aspect of the book, but there are time jumps. And I like time jumps within a book. However, we were in the past too much. And too often, too long. I wanted to stay in the present because the present, in my opinion, was more interesting. We go back in time to before the Arcadia sank. It'll be 6 days before the ship sank, 5 days, 2 days, 1 day. And we're there for too long. And the information that we're given is good. I think it's good for us to know that information, but I wished we could have found that a different way. I wish it would have been short journal entries or letters. I didn't like that we were following characters from the past for as long as we were. It took me out of the story, and I didn't find it as interesting, or would rather have not known anything and just been completely lost as to why this ship has things wrong with it. Because there are things down there that they discover that are creepy. It is a grave, but I think almost going into the past ruined some of that suspense, in my opinion. So for that reason, I did give it a 3-star. I would recommend it if you are more into Darcey Coates' cozier books. You want a summer read that has uncomfortable feelings, but is not scary necessarily. And, it's a good read. Just not my favorite Darcey Coates. It's also not my least favorite. I thought it was good. The second book that I read was Carley Fortune's Every Summer After. This is a romance, which is not very normal for me. I'm not a romance reader. I might pick one up every once in a while, and this is an exception for me because the cover is so summery, and I kind of hoped that this was going to be like a sad, more, I don't know, realistic romance than like a really silly romance. That's what I was hoping for. I got exactly what I wanted out of this book. It is a summer romance. It gives you all the summer vibes. It's by a lake, and I feel like we get to know our characters pretty well, and the emotions are there. It didn't just feel like a silly, stupid romance, because I hate those. In this book, we're following Persephone. This does time jump between the present, where she's an editor in Toronto, and then to the past, where she's I think we start off at 12, 13, I think. Her family is pretty wealthy, and they have a summer home in Canada in a province I don't remember. But it's by a lake, this nice house, and she meets Sam. And we're following them as they grow up together. Every summer, they swim in the lake, they sunbathe, on the shore, they get ice cream. It's very summer vibes. And in the present, she has a lot of guilt, and we don't know why. So there is this mystery factor. In the beginning of the book, in the present, something happens down at the lake that she needs to go and tend to, or something is drawing her back there, something sad, and it's causing her and Sam to reunite. But something happened that we don't know. We don't know what happened. So we're going back into the past and getting closer to the present where something happened. I did enjoy this book. I liked that they kind of grew up together, and every year, they're changing and seeing each other differently. Their friendship is blossoming into something different, and you kind of have that almost, you kind of remember what it's like to be 13 and insecure, having a crush. And it was a good summer read. This didn't necessarily make me want to pick up another romance or to read anything else by this author. I figured it was going to be a one and done kind of book, and I think that's the case. I enjoyed it. I wanted to read it because it's summer, and I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. Again, romance is not my genre, so I would recommend it if you're here for the summer vibes, for coming of age, and maybe a little bit sad. And it is second chance. I believe that is the trope, is like second chance romance. And it's also so short. I think that's another reason why I enjoyed it, because it was just a short little read. So I gave it 3 stars. I liked it. The next book that I read, oh my god, was The Ruins by Scott Smith. Oh my goodness, this book was such a journey. It was so good. In this book, we're following a group of college students that they travel to Mexico, I think just like on vacation. I think they're just there to have a good time. One of the group members meets a woman who is an archaeologist. I think that's the title, who's going to go explore some pyramid ruins somewhere else in Mexico, like a little bit far from where the group is. And he likes her, so he's going to go on this adventure with her. His brother is also within this group, and he kind of feels that he shouldn't go, he should just stay with them. He hasn't known this woman very long, but the brother goes anyway. The group is enjoying their time in Mexico. They're like at a resort, I think, and they meet a Russian and an Italian. They meet other people that kind of just tag along with them. They can't even speak the same language, but they have like this group of people. And the brother has not heard from his brother in a few days. He feels that he should have already been back. He's worried about him. So they decide reluctantly to go search for him. They know the general area that he was going to, and so they travel there to find him. They get to the ruins where all these natives live, like near that area. Once they get to the ruins, the natives will not let them leave, and they don't know why. That's all I kind of want to say about it because I think it's really interesting to go into this blind. I will say this is a gross book, which it was so good. I would recommend this if you're into fast-paced horror with so many gross scenes and the feeling of hopelessness. You feel that within this book so much, just like there's no hope. And a book that will make you squirm. Like, there are some scenes in this book, a lot of scenes that are really uncomfortable and gross. I think the feeling that got me the most within this book is the feeling of thirst and heat. And I don't know, I think them being thirsty and hungry really got me, like how they felt during those times. But there are a lot of good gross scenes in this book. The villain, I'll just say villain. I don't know if that would be the correct title, but the villain within this book I loved learning about and thought was so interesting. This was a 5-star read, my first of the year. I figured was going to be this book. I thought my first 5-star read was going to be a horror because I just love horror. And I know that there is a movie adaptation of this book. I do not plan to see it. I have heard it's not very good, and I also enjoyed the book so much that I think a movie would ruin it. I really recommend this book if you love horror and, again, just really good gross scenes. I took a little break and applied some lip gloss, so I might look a little different. The next book that I read was The Wager by David Grann. I bought this book a long time ago and loved the cover, and everyone was reading it, said it was good. I also think it's a good read. It is nonfiction, but it's not boring. This is about the shipwreck of the Wager and the terrible things that happen with the men, things that they do. One of the sailors kept a very detailed account of what happened, and I think even in the book they say, the author says that he did it in a kind of unconventional way to how they are normally done. It was like a little bit more personal and detailed, and it was interesting. The Wager and a few other ships were on this mission. A bunch of them sank. The Wager was a shipwreck, and so many people died, but some of them survived, and the person keeping the account of what happened survives, and it's about them surviving the horrible things that they did. And the person who kept these accounts, him writing everything down even put him in danger because the men did not want people to know. If somehow they were able to get back to their homeland, they didn't want people to know what they did because they could have been killed for it. I thought it was interesting. It's also very short. It doesn't look short, but it is. There are a lot of pictures, and I feel like the font's pretty big. I did listen to the majority of this, which I liked. I think that kept me engaged. My favorite part of this book were all of the facts that the author sprinkled within the story. I thought that was interesting, like scurvy. At one point, a bunch of the men get scurvy, and they don't know what that is. They don't know how to cure it. They're confused. And then the author would sprinkle in facts like, this is what scurvy is. This is how it could have been prevented. The sailors even had the resources to prevent this. They just didn't know. Or facts about like surgeons, how surgeons wouldn't clean their tools at this time because they didn't know they had to sterilize things. Like, I thought that was interesting. Or facts about the natives. That's what I enjoyed the most. I will say the end of the book lost me a little bit because we started following a few of the other ships, or one, it might have been just one ship, and their journey a little bit, and I didn't care. I think at that point I was like done with The Wager and that story, that I didn't really care to follow another one. I know it's kind of weird to rate a nonfiction. I gave it 3 stars just based on my enjoyment of the book, but I thought it was good. I wanted to have some nonfiction within this month, and I mean, just look at this cover; it's so pretty, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, and I think since everyone read it and loved it, I wanted to know why. The next book I read was Intensity by Dean Koontz. This cover's like so obnoxious in the best way. I love it. This is my second Dean Koontz that I've read, and this was a good book. In this book, we're following two psychology majors that are going to one of their houses, two women, for I think it's Thanksgiving break. I think it might be a birthday. I don't really remember. But they're going to one of their houses for like a weekend trip. And one of them, the one that we're going to her house, she's pretty wealthy. They have like a really nice house. The other comes from a very broken house with a really terrible mother and father. It's bad. So very different people, but they have the same like major. And they go to the house, and there is a serial killer. I don't want to say too much about the book, but this is so intense. It is a very stressful book. I had to put this book down a few times because I was so anxious. And I don't think I've experienced that with a book before. This whole like event, this whole encounter is supposed to take place, I think, within 24 hours. So it's very fast paced. I would recommend this if you like books about serial killers and if you like fast paced books, because this is so fast paced. We like our main character. We end up following one of the psychology majors, the one that comes from a lot of heartbreak. She has a lot of issues that she's dealt with in her life. We follow her. Now, I will say some of this stuff was hard to read. Our protagonist comes from a very broken home, and things that happened to her were really bad and icky. And then our serial killer, we go into his perspective within this book. And at one point, I put the book down. I was like, I don't want to be in his mind right now because I know he has a really messed up mind. And some of the things that he has done are really disturbing, and things that he wants to do are very disturbing. So I would just keep that in mind if you pick up this book. But it was so good. And the end was fantastic, so satisfying. I loved it. I read it so fast. This is my second Dean Koontz. I don't know if I've said that already, but I'm finding that I like his writing quite a bit. I know that this is one of his most popular books, but I have some Dean Koontz books like on my radar that I want to read because I think he just makes his books very captivating. Like you just really want to know what happens. And I picked up Dean Koontz initially because I wanted to compare him to Stephen King because I have not found a Stephen King book that I've loved or you know I can't even say that I've read a Stephen King book that I really liked. I just finished. And I feel like it's a goal of mine to find a Stephen King that I like, but I think it is interesting to compare these two authors that are like the same time. They're around the same like age-ish and are both kind of comparable. I feel like people compare them quite a bit, but I've found that I really like Dean Koontz. This is my second 5-star from him, so I will be buying more Dean Koontz. And the last book that I read is so different to the others. I read a classic. I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which, again, super different to all the rest. But I like to be a well-rounded reader. I don't want to just stick to one genre. I personally think it's important for me to read multiple genres, to even more difficult ones, and to, not only stick to horror and fantasy, which is what I love. So this is written by Mark Twain. I'll probably not read another one by this author, but in this book, we're following Huck Finn, who has already gone on an adventure with Tom Sawyer. I didn't know that. So these characters are already established. This is like book 2. In this book, we start off with Huck Finn being kind of reunited with his father, and because at first he's living with a widow who treats him really well, but he has to like be proper. He has to follow rules, and he doesn't really like that. And he goes to live with his father, but his father is abusive and a terrible man. So Huck Finn decides that he's going to fake his death and travel down the Mississippi River on a raft to escape his father and just have adventures and not have to follow rules and just kind of be free. A slave, Jim, goes with him. And their relationship was my favorite part of the book. I liked learning about Jim and his experiences as a slave, just like his life. And he is such a good like man and travel companion to Huck, and I really liked that. So Jim is a runaway slave, but he's escaping. But the further they get from their home, the higher the stakes are for Jim, because now he's a runaway slave and there have been allegations against him. And Huck is helping him escape, but also dealing with the turmoil of, is this right? Because he wants to help Jim escape, but he's afraid that God's going to punish him, that he's going to go to hell. There's conflict within himself about whether or not this is right. And I found that very interesting to see it from a boy's perspective who grew up, in this time where like that's normal. And I thought that was very interesting. The conversation around slavery was interesting. And I think we get a lot of that throughout the whole book, but I feel like the beginning and the end. What lost me in this book were some companions that they picked up along the way, because they're having a few different like adventures throughout the book. But they pick up the Duke and the King, like nicknames for two characters, and I didn't care less about these characters. I did not like them. And we're not supposed to, but I just didn't care at all about that part of the story. I found myself just kind of daydreaming during that part of the book. And then the end brought me back, like it became interesting again. But I can't say that I like really enjoyed the book, but I feel like it's one I can check off. Like I read this classic, I've read a Mark Twain. I think like that's cool. I'll put it on my shelf. But I don't know if I would like recommend it. I did immersion read this and listen to it. I found an audiobook and I liked the narrator because the way that they speak, there are lots of different dialects within this book, and it's hard to understand a lot of the time. And he also did change some words that are within this book, that he changed them to better words. So I'm in between a 2.5 and a 3. I don't think I like super enjoyed it, but Jim and Huck, I enjoyed their relationship, like I said, and it's also a good book for summer because they're on the Mississippi River in either a canoe or like a raft. So you get that summer feeling, but I would say a good portion of this book, I was just like, I don't care about these two characters that are just bad characters. But this is the last book that I read, and I can check it off. I read a classic. That's kind of how I see some classics. I have enjoyed some classics. Like one of my classic I have is one of my favorite books, but this one's just kind of like I did it. I'm so happy that I found my first 5-star of the year. This has been my best reading month of the year, and I'm also enjoying August quite a bit, but this was such a good reading month for me, and I enjoyed reading so much in July, which I'm so happy about. Let me know what your favorite book you read in July is. I always like when YouTubers ask that, and then I can like comment what my favorite book was. And if you don't know what else to comment, you can comment the little ship emoji for the wager. That will be the emoji for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.